Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today we are thinking about carrying someone else's story. That is a thinker. And luckily, I have Shuang-Min here who's going to help us think about this in a whole new way. So, thank you so much for coming onto my show, sharing your time and your perspective with me. I am truly grateful for this opportunity to pick your brain. So, let's just dive right in. When you hear those words, carrying someone else's story, what does that make you think about?
When you were saying it, the first thing that came up was, oh, the lectures or, the so-called like values, the wisdom of life, my family imparted on me. I could see how my grandparents was telling me, how a girl should and should not behave, and how my parents kept telling me like I had to have good grades and go to good university so that I could have a good job, and I'm supposed to work in a job for as long as I could, all um those ways how my elders navigate their own lives, and how that became part of my values, like consciously or subconsciously, how I was navigating my life before.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm glad that you see it that way and that you were able to, that was the first thing that came to your mind. And I thank you for sharing that because that's what I want. I want people to that's the first thing that come to mind. But it's true. When you really think about that, you really remember the times that the people around you, the adults, your parents, your grandparents, the guardians, you know what I mean, your aunts, uncles, those older
Yeah.
individuals who try to help steer you in the right direction, but by telling
Yeah.
you, oh, this is what you should value because this is what we see value, this is what we see as
Yeah.
important. So maybe you should try to nudge in that direction so that you can be embody that because I remember growing up, my grandmother used to say, a good girl always make sure the house is clean, that you're clean,
Mhm.
that you know how to cook, that you need to have all of these skills
Yeah.
because one day you're gonna need it. And it's yes, I know exactly what you mean. I remember that. But it is really interesting to see. Do you still see those as your values or have your values changed throughout time?
There are a lot of things that changed throughout the time because they didn't serve me at all. And there are things I still value them, but I had a different relationship with them. For example, um, I also have this story like told to me that you are a woman, so you are supposed to be cook because you are going to be married at some point, and you are supposed to be a homemaker, and so on and so forth. So I used to avoid not cooking because there was not a role I wanted to play. So I used to avoid not cooking for like most of my adulthood. Then I went into the fitness world, like working myself in the gym, and then started to understand my body. So I developed a new kind of relationship with cooking. So cooking is still like me knowing cooking is still a big value for me. But my relationship with cooking is different. It's about nurturing myself. It's about, like making sure I have the biggest physical capacity to do the exercise I want. For example, surfing exercise. And also I'm an energy worker. So how the healthier our body is, the more energy we could embody. So,
Yeah.
nowadays people are talking about, in the flow manifestation and, realizing dreams. It's actually coming back to the physical body, how much energy our body could hold first. So for me, that's
Yeah.
my relationship with cooking. So I make a point to cook as much as I could to engage my I stay with my sister right now for in the past 11 months, like um how we make cooking fun, not an obligation, but something that has a layer that it's important to us.
Yeah, I love that. Oh my goodness, how I love that because it makes us realize that the knowledge that was given to you is not always wrong, but there's a way to connect it so it makes it real for you. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
also liked how you said
Yeah.
that there were certain values that no longer served you so that you basically let them go. And I respect that because we have to acknowledge what works for us. What works for somebody else may not work for us. It's like clothes,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like if
Yeah.
I wear a large and you wear a small, a small is not going to fit me and a large is going to be way too big on you. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
means that no, that doesn't serve you and that doesn't serve me, but we still find clothes that still fit us and work for us. You know what I mean? And I think that's where
Yeah.
we have to remember those values, is that we have to see them in a way that actually makes sense for us. You know what I mean? Like cooking.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that example because I heard the same thing too. Yeah, you got to know how to cook because when your husband gets home, he needs a well-nourished meal and you need to make sure that you provide that. And it felt like an obligation. And it was just so
Yeah.
stressful. And I didn't want to do that either. Like, oh, no, like, no, thank you. But yeah, then it developed something else. Like I wasn't doing it because I had to, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I did it because I loved it. And I love that that's how you found that focus, is that, oh, you realize that now food can provide me the nutrients that I need. It provides me the energy, the things that my body naturally produces but may lack certain times. You can provide that right back into your body by eating certain foods and eating
Yeah.
certain things a certain way, you know? So it truly does bring more value when you are able to connect it in a way that
Yeah.
makes sense. You know what I mean? Like for me, now when I cook for my husband, it's not because it's an obligation or he demands it. No, I cook it because that's how I show him love, that I care about you and I see you
Yeah.
and I see how hard you're working. So let me provide you at least a good home cooked meal. You know what I mean? So it's like for me, it's like I do it out of love, and that's my service is love. You know what I mean? My love
Yeah.
language is doing things, you know what I mean, for people. So
Yeah.
that's why I don't have that burden anymore. But I know exactly what you mean. Like we sometimes have to make it real for us to move in a direction that no longer holds us back when we hear it, or makes it like ugh, cringe when you hear it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It
Yeah.
really does make things differently. So for you, like what is your story now? You know what I mean? What is a story that you will be able to tell to the next generation? You know what I'm saying? Do you have that legacy already building up?
I don't know. Legacy sounds still a bit like definite for me. At least how I am inspired to, like live my own life or create my own life is that I want to be the role model to show people that that's infinite possibility
Yeah.
to engineer your life. We live life in one way when we are at 20s, doesn't mean that we have to follow that path at our 30s. And we have relationship with one certain thing or one certain people. At our 30 doesn't mean that we need to carry that into our 40s.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like I had a very different relationship with my original family compared to now. Like, well, I'm from a Chinese culture, pan-Chinese culture, so the family could be heavy, and sometimes we have so many obligations. We are more in a collective consciousness culture instead of individualism culture. So that used to feel like really heavy and made me feel unfree, and I carry that kind of feeling or sensation uh, almost till my like early 30s. And then at
Yeah.
some point, I decided that they are my family. I still want to be with them. Then I need to change my way of the narrative.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like so that is the way that I always inspire to create or engineer my life. Like I had the whole background story of I was born and bred Taiwanese. After graduation in college, I moved to India. I was there for 3 years, and then I was in Italy for 2 years and a half. I was in China for 8 years. So I'm also carrying the stories, the way different culture look at me, the way I can look at different culture, and it's up to me to marinate my experience, even for someone who don't travel that much. Like we all have life experience. The older we grow, the more we will have. And it's up to us to marinate those stories and making those stories making sense to ourselves. And using
Yeah.
those stories as a foundation, as a nourishment to create more instead of I do healing as well. So instead of letting those story being a burden, being something that stop us, being the narrative telling ourselves that, oh, because I have that experience, so I cannot do that. Like it's up to us to make our story like powerful, or make our story obstacles.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, how I love that. I think that holds so much value because people don't realize like the different experiences, the different cultures, the different like just what you've been through in your life can truly create an understanding of your character and allows you to truly shift your perspective wherever you go because it gives you that context like things are different and you're able to move different. It's adaptability. You're able to have that adaptability
Yeah,
when you're able to marinate. And the fact that you were like, oh, I want to have still have that relationship with my family. I have to change the narrative of what I tell myself. I think that still holds so much value because people will go back to their family and still hold that trauma from their childhood and wondering why every
yeah,
time they're around their family they're being triggered without realizing well
yeah,
you never changed your contacts you never allowed them to be this age and this version of this season of our lives. You're still holding on to
yeah,
the version that you had 20, 30, 40 years ago, so you can't have a relationship 20, 30 years later because you still see them in that manner, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
that's one thing that I say all the time is that time will not heal you unless you allow time to shift your perspective, and then time will
yeah,
heal all wounds. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
if you don't allow time to shift your perspective, then those wounds are still going to be active in your 40s and 50s. You know what I mean? You're still going to be
yeah,
immature in your 40s and 50s if you don't allow that growth, that evolve, that lesson, that understanding. You know what I mean? Because
yeah,
everybody was given certain cards growing up. Every generation was giving something else, something else,
yeah,
something else. And they had to
yeah,
carry something else, another burden, another stress, another something, because every generation dealt with something. So it's just like when you allowed yourself to change your narrative and give you that context of understanding, that gives you that empowerment that you were talking about, because now you are in control of yourself.
yeah,
You are aware of what's going on. And I think that's so valuable because it gives hope to somebody who's listening, like, huh, maybe I do have the power, huh? Maybe I can really do
yeah,
something differently. And that's why I love these conversations because it puts things into perspective that makes people realize, like, maybe it's the way that I'm looking at it. Maybe it's me. You know what I mean? That's the reason why I'm always still triggered, and I think that trauma that we deal with sometimes, we don't really sit with it, or we don't really consider even reflecting back to it, you know what I mean? Or giving us that opportunity to forgive and let go, because that really does make a difference. So I have to ask you, what motivates you now?
I'm creating my business, so it's like well-being, energetic well-being, physical well-being, and emotional well-being. And mostly I work with high achievers to redefine success through self-trust instead of chasing more, like accumulating more, but feel exhaustion, because that was actually our all human narrative. Like I need to chase more and more and more so I can be more and more successful.
Mm,
So I work with people to start to see if this is their choice, they want to change their narrative. The success is an ecosystem that is our life. So
yeah,
we are the center of our universe, and everything in our life, it's our ecosystem. And only when we live in harmony and peace and calm with everything there is, that's how I define success, because success is supposed to be peaceful, supposed to be calm. This is actually an old story, how the society promised us. When we are successful, we will be calm, we will feel settled, we will feel secure, we will feel, all those good feelings. But look at in the world, most of people that you will call successful, or they don't feel this. So something it's not there. Something is not connecting in the narratives we were told in the society about success.
yeah.
So that's what's getting me up, and I'm going to a trip for 3 months trip to Europe. So I'm going to visit some my old colleagues, and some new acquaintances that I met online, and that's like for this year, and a new circle of my work is going to come up. And it's just daily life. I really enjoy my daily life. It's not because it's so-called exciting. It's just the connection that I feel through it. It's peaceful.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you mean. It's like when you have that moment where you just find your peace, everything else really doesn't matter. It's not really a
Yeah,
necessity. It's not really a rush. It's just when it happens and it happens perfectly. The timing's perfectly, the moment's perfect. Like there's really no need to stress. There's no need to worry. There's no need to try to manipulate or control because at the end of the day, when it happens, oh, it's going to be so beautiful and it's going to hold so much value and it's really going to be impactful in one way or another. And even if it's not impactful in the moment, it will be impactful later when you reflect back on that moment and realize, like, wow, that was a great moment. I really learned something, or I really enjoyed that moment, or I really feel seen. I really feel heard. Like those are real moments. And I feel like you're right. A lot of people are just chasing the next thing. And it's like
yeah,
this rat race that goes nowhere. And it's like, how can you really define that as successful when you don't find peace? You know what I mean? Like, how can you really say that's
yeah,
successful if you can't even enjoy the money? You have $1 million in the bank, but you can't even enjoy the money. Like, how is that success? You can't
yeah,
even spend time with your family. How is that success? You're pulled in every direction. How is that success? You're not success.
yeah,
You're stressed. You're overwhelmed. You're frustrated
yeah,
and you're overwhelmed. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes it's best to just have less or knowing where that middle ground is that grace period, you know what I mean? Where you don't need too
yeah,
much and you don't need very little, you know what I mean? You're just right there where you just have enough. And I don't think a lot of people even know that feeling or just know what it even looks like for them, that they're just constantly just trying to seek the next thing or trying to keep up with whoever that they're watching or trying to have them influence their lives. And I think that's where you have to watch out when it comes to carrying somebody else's story is like who are you watching? Like who do you find as valuable? Who are your role models, you know? So it's like for you,
yeah.
Xiangmin, who is your role model?
Uh, the people that I grew up without really get into, like a teenager who have the pop culture idols. I didn't have that experience in my life. I was never attracted to it. So I thought it in this way, if I could have tea with someone, like someone famous or someone that it's can be a role model who I would like to have tea with. The first one is Queen Elizabeth the First.
Hmm. Why?
And um as a woman, she redefined the image of what a women leader can be. And she has, of course, I don't know her personally. History is another story. And that's how I
Yeah.
see this story impacts me. And she has so much conviction to achieve what she believed the country can achieve, her leadership can achieve when nobody could.
Yeah.
Everyone was pushing her into the old narrative. You are supposed to make alliance through a marriage. You are women. You're supposed to, murder someone so that you can pass down your throne to another person. But she did something different.
Yeah.
She actually passed down to the throne to the son of another queen or princess that she didn't get along anyway.
Yeah.
And
That's
and she had to recreate her own narrative back in the time because there was a society. And
yeah.
I always imagine if she were living in the modern world, she could be so free and doing so much more. She spent so much energy fighting those old stories because back in the time it was harder to shake.
Yeah. Yeah. It really was.
Right? And he also reminding me that I am in such good time that
Yeah.
even I want to reinvent myself. Honestly, yes, there will be nagging and like all those comments, but actually nobody cares, you know? We are
Yeah.
so free to do that.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing that I always say. Nobody really cares. It's usually our own narrative inside our own mind that's making us repeat the things over and over and over again. But
Yeah,
in reality, like that person that you're having that conversation in your mind with, they don't know you're having that conversation. You know what I mean? They don't know that you have escalated the
yeah,
situation more than what it is. They have no idea. They're just living their life on their own. And a lot of the times people are
yeah,
just living their life. And when they know that it bothers you, then they'll bring it up. But it's out of just out of their own enjoyment. It's not really because they really care, and nobody really cares. All this nonsense of, oh, it ruined me, it destroyed me. Like, did it though? Did it though? Because in reality, do you still have your life? Do you still have your dignity? Do you still have your peace? Do you even know what your peace is? You know what I mean? Because then we have to
yeah,
really break it down and get really further, because it's like that is a good question. And I love the fact that you switch the narrative from role model to having tea with somebody, because I'm with you. When I was growing up, I didn't have a role model. I didn't have anybody that I knew that was a decent human being. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't have nobody who was a decent human being. And to look up to celebrities, that was never my foreplay, because I knew that they had their own issues that they were dealing with. It was never a real situation, because they were always drunk, they were doing drugs, they were partying too much. They obviously lived a life that was toxic, and I can see the destruction that was happening. So I was just like, no, nobody seemed like they were worthy. But I love the fact how you said I would have a cup of tea with this person just so that I can pick their brains, just so that you can just hear what made you decide to move in a manner, change your narrative,
yeah,
change from the status quo of how women's supposed to be. And it was better to make alliance and make peace than to stand up and stand your ground and cause people to shake, cause people to have that fear. You know what I mean? And that's true empowerment. Is to stand in your knowing, stand in what you believe in. And not a lot of people have that strength to just stand in that. You know what I mean? And I was talking to somebody one time, and we were like, we have to see confidence and courage like a stepping stool. And every time you step onto confidence, you're stepping on doubt. And every time you step onto to courage, you're stepping on fear, and you just keep on going, and you're not letting the doubt, you're not letting the fear get to you, and you're just going to progressively move forward, because that courage and that confidence moves you in a way that people are like, what is going over there? Like, what is that magic tea that they're drinking? So it's like people really don't realize that. So I have to ask you, if somebody would felt like they were holding too much of somebody else's story on them, what would you tell them?
there are several exercise that one can do actually if you feel usually when we feel that we are holding other people's story, there will be a sense of disalignment. So it can show up in our body, like you start to get sick a lot for no reason, or you just feel like really exhausted, to maintain those facade because it wasn't your narrative. So it take efforts to
Yeah,
live in those stories, or you feel like easily triggered because you need to protect something that's not yours, so it's not nature. So like whenever somebody else saying something that's different from those storylines, you got triggered a lot. You feel you need to defend, you need to protect. So these
mhm,
are several signs that when we are carrying other people's stories or we are not living in alignment. So if that's a thing, like you can write down like, how do you get triggers so easy? You know what kind of situation and what that trigger is really telling you. You know what that trigger is not, it's never, I always said our external world is just a reflection of our internal world. There's nothing out there that cause anything. It's because we already have it within us in some form, in some way. So we can be triggered. We cannot go to the library, check out a book that's not even in the library, right?
exactly.
So so like whenever like you are triggered or in a certain kind of situation that you feel, you fall sick quite easily, it's time to look at, in life what you feel like there are so much effort but so little return.
Yeah, yeah,
And or when you are triggered, exactly what's the feeling is triggered because we have more as a human beings, we of course we have protect protective mechanism. That was our survival mind that is protecting us. So we may express our anger, we may express in cynicism, we may express in indifference, but those surface expression of our emotion has something deeper.
Yeah.
So it really takes the willingness and honesty to look at within yourself, like what's triggered. For example, about 2, 3 weeks ago, my dad triggered me in a very, very big way. I was so triggered because I have trained myself. So usually whatever I was going through, I will have another conscious mind, let's say conscious self, like observing the situation. So
Yeah.
that's how I operate. So like that peaceful, wise, conscious mind was like, what's going on here? Why are you so angry? And
Yeah.
I got into a small fight with my dad, and he was really frustrated. And because he was frustrated, I was like, I was frustrated because I that wasn't my intention to frustrate him. So later on, I do this exercise immediately right now instead of need extra time. I check in with myself. So exactly what he said that triggers exactly what within me. So it was just a situation. He says something in a certain way that triggered me some emotions back in the childhood. I didn't feel valued and seen and
Yeah.
trusted.
Yeah.
He didn't know. Of course, he didn't know. Like he was just saying the way he used to say something.
Yeah.
So I realized it. So I was just hurt. And so at the moment, my mind just firing the old story without me fully realizing it and, got really protective about me. But there's nothing to protect.
Yeah.
And so like later on when I calmed down, I went to talk to my dad. I told him that wasn't my intention, but the way you say it really triggered me because of this and that. Like so we actually got the opportunity to talk out some childhood experience they didn't know I was experiencing, because I never told them that actually growing up, all those, like storylines, narratives, expectations actually
Yeah.
made me feel that I was not trusted.
Yeah.
I made me feel that I was inadequate and I couldn't do
Hmm.
things on my own. And
Yeah.
there was the storyline when people see us this way, we don't feel whole. We don't feel
Yeah.
capable. We don't feel empowered.
Yeah.
So I got to tell him like, oh, this kind like my childhood experience. So we actually get the opportunity to see each other at the moment. Because
Yeah.
as you
That's
said, we
beautiful.
always remember people with the past experience instead of seeing them for the
As
present
it.
moment. And
Yeah.
the willingness to go through that, to come through all those storylines is actually an opportunity to bring and ourselves to the present moment. Who I am, why I am here, and what do I want to do.
Wow.
So this is one of the exercise. Look into the deep layer of what is really triggered. What is the story that got triggered, so that we have the emotion. And then another
Yeah.
exercise that one can do, it's just writing down, those things, like whatever story you are telling yourself, whatever way or your perspective of seeing something, but for example, seeing money, seeing about career, seeing about, what friends should be, just write them down. Depends on which area you want to look at,
Yeah.
and really closely look at, which line of thinking or looking at things doesn't serve you anymore,
Yeah.
and find a
Yeah.
way to pivot it or put in practice to release yourself from those storylines. Because if we don't control and engineer our storylines, they will control and engineer us subconsciously.
Absolutely, absolutely. And
Yeah,
that's the reason why we don't heal. That's the reason why we get stuck, and that's the reason why anytime we are around somebody, we get back into that position. And I love that story, and I thank you for sharing that part of you, and because you didn't have to, but you did, and it makes it so real. It makes it like if she can do it, so could I. I can practice this. I can work on this, because we've all had those moments where we feel that insecurity, where we feel this sense of going back into childhood. But when you said, I don't have to protect anything, there's nothing to protect. Oh my goodness. That statement holds so much value, because why are you in survival mode? You know what I mean? Like, why do you need to be in survival mode right now? We're in the kitchen, you know what I mean? There's no warfare, or we're in the park, or we're at a pool, or we're at the movie theaters, or at the bar, you know what I mean? You could be anywhere and it can happen, but it's like there's no need to be in survival mode. That you lost your peace. Come back. Come back. And I love the fact that you
Yeah.
look at yourself in that subconscious mindset, because that's how I am too sometimes. And I'm able to just when I get that correction, I'm like, you know what? Let me I apologize. I knew I was wrong. I should have never snapped like that. I should have never came at you like that. I understand where it came from, and that's something that I'm still working on. You know what I mean? Just own up to it, because the sooner that you own up to it, the sooner you can heal it, the sooner you can recognize it, and the sooner you won't even be offended anymore. You know what I mean? Like one
Yeah.
quote that I held on to last year was um, one offense in one season is wisdom in the next season, and people don't realize, like, if you allow that offense to evolve, it can truly turn into wisdom in another season. So it's really something very impactful. And man, I can feel like I can continue on talking to you for hours on end. I love this conversation, and it's sad that our time is truly catching up to us. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to know more about Sean Mean, please go check her out. How could you not after this conversation? Or if you need help with your own traumas and your own triggers, and you just need that little push, and you really enjoyed what she had to say, and truly see the value that she can bring into your life or in this world in general, go check her out. I have access to her link to her website so that you can continue on thinking. She has so much great content, so many ways to help you so that you can continue to evolve and work on yourself. You don't have to do this alone. You do not have to do this
Yeah.
walk alone in life, and that's why she's here. And that's why she's just trying to help people realize, like, it's a possibility. If you're willing to work on it, there's a real way to fix it. So with that being said, always, always keep thinking, y'all. Bye.